I stood there in the wedding dress, altered from my grandmother's feeling, as though the entire world was staring at me. The reception hall shimmered with chandelier light, the clinking of champagne glasses ringing like a symphony of pretense. Today was my wedding day, the day I became Ethan's wife, the man I loved more than anything in the world. But my sister Lauren had turned this moment into a stage for her to flaunt her superiority. Her voice rang out sweet as honey but sharp as a blade as she raised her glass in a toast. To the happy couple who always loved playing in the mud. Laughter erupted from the 200 guests, hitting me like a slap across the face. My cheeks burned, my heart pounded as every eye in the room turned to Ethan and me. I'm Emily, and this was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But my family people I once thought would lift me up dragged me down as they had for the past 30 years. Lauren, 31, radiant in her expensive bridesmaid dress, stood there like a queen, commanding every glance in the room. She was the golden child, an MBA from Stanford, with a corner office on the top floor in Manhattan, and a husband in a $1,000 suit, Nathan, who loved to talk stock markets over dinner parties. And me, I was just Emily, the girl who chose love over ambition, wearing a vintage wedding dress, sitting next to a farmer husband, who still had traces of dirt from the fields he checked that morning. My mother Susan sat nearby, whispering in a sharp tone. Emily smiled, dear. People are watching, her hands with perfectly manicured nails gripped my arm, as if trying to mold me into the family's ideal. People were always watching, weren't they? They'd watched me my whole life, waiting for the moment I'd stumble, proving I could never measure up to Lauren. And Lauren knew it. She knew how to turn every opportunity into a jab, reminding me that in the Blair family, I was forever the runner-up. But then Ethan's strong, calloused hand found mine under the table. His fingers, still smelling of earth and sweat, traced gentle circles on my palm. I looked up at him, his brown eyes steady, unshaken by the giggles around us. Let them laugh, he whispered, his breath warm and sincere against my ear. We know what we have. His words were an anchor pulling me back from the abyss of shame. God, I love this man. He was real, more real than anyone in this room, full of tailored suits and fake smiles. He'd insisted on checking the irrigation system that morning, even on our wedding day, because that's who he was. A farmer, a man of the land of hard work and honesty. Chloe, my youngest sister, 27, quietly slipped into the empty chair beside me. She was always the peacemaker, trying to soften the sharp edges of our family. I still can't believe you married a farmer, she whispered, her voice gentle but tinged with curiosity. I mean, it's romantic, but Mom's been on anxiety meds all week. I glanced at Lauren, who was working the crowd like a politician on the campaign trail. Thanks for the pep talk, I replied dryly. Chloe tried to backtrack, but her words were cut off when my father Richard stood up, his voice booming through the microphone, silencing the room. I'd like to say a few words about my daughter Emily. He declared, his silver hair impeccably styled, but his eyes carrying a mix of resignation and disappointment. My stomach clenched. This couldn't be good. Emily has always been different, he began. And I saw Lauren smirk behind her champagne glass, while her sisters focused on careers and achievements. Emily chose a different path, a simpler one. The word simpler hung in the air like a verdict. Ethan's hand tightened around mine. She chose to marry Ethan, a man who works with his hands and understands the value of honest labor. His words were a velvet-wrapped dagger, sharp, but disguised as kindness. We wish them happiness in their modest life. Polite but cold applause followed. I saw my mother dab her eyes with a tissue, though I wasn't sure if she was crying from joy or regret. Your dad's laying it on thick, Ethan said softly, his voice calm, but laced with indignation at the insult cloaked in a blessing. He's been rehearsing that speech for weeks, I replied, watching Lauren whisper something to Nathan. They laughed, and I didn't need to hear, to know they were mocking me. This was my family. The people who were supposed to celebrate with me turned my wedding day into a funeral for my potential. Every achievement I'd ever earned, my college degree, my teaching award, my small organic vegetable business, was dismissed because I chose love over status. A fire ignited within me, hot and unstoppable. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor, cutting through the din of the reception. Every eye turned to me. I raised my glass of water because I was too practical to waste champagne on a toast and looked straight at Lauren. To family, I said, my voice ringing clear across the suddenly silent room, and to realizing who's truly there for you when it matters. Lauren's smile faltered just for a moment, but I saw it. She quickly raised her glass with the others, but I knew I'd drawn a line in the sand. No one else noticed, but I did. As I sat down, Ethan leaned over and whispered, "That's my girl." His words were a prophecy, though I didn't yet know where they would lead us. 3 years passed since the wedding, but the sting of Lauren's mockery still smoldered within me like a fire that never died. I stood in the marble-floored hallway of Lauren's suburban mansion, clutching a dish of green bean casserole, a humble offering from Ethan's in my garden, a small piece of the life we'd built. The clink of wine glasses and artificial laughter from the backyard echoed a familiar soundtrack from my childhood family gatherings, where I was always the outsider, pushed to the margins by Lauren's glamour and my parents' suffocating expectations. I took a deep breath, smoothed my simple cotton dress, and stepped into the backyard, where sunlight glinted off the pool, and the catered spread looked like a work of art. Emily, my mother, Susan, called, her voice sharp as a bell signaling judgment. She approached her silk dress, hugging her frame, her eyes scanning me as if appraising a flawed product. "You're here. We were just talking about the Hamptons house Lauren and Nathan just bought." Of course they were. Lauren, like a goddess in a flowing white sundress, glided past me with a smile as perfect as her manicured garden. "Oh, you brought food," she said, eyeing my dish with faint suspicion as if it might contaminate her lavish spread. "How thoughtful." "Green bean casserole," I said, setting it down beside the professionally prepared dishes. "From our garden." Nathan, Lauren's husband, appeared beside her, a martini in hand, his polo shirt so crisp it could cut paper. "Is it organic?" he asked, his tone implying a smirk. "Or just regular?" The question hung in the air, and I felt the eyes of a few family friends turn toward me, waiting for me to falter. My cheeks burned, but I kept my voice steady. "Homegrown," I said. "Organic." Ethan, standing beside me in a simple cotton shirt and worn jeans, spoke up, his voice low but firm, from our land. He looked out of place amid Nathan and Lauren's opulence, but his presence was a reminder that we didn't belong in this world, and I didn't want to. Nathan nodded, feigning interest. "Right, the farming thing, still playing in the dirt." Chuckles rippled through the nearby group, slicing into my pride. Lauren laughed, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "Profit." "Oh, darling, that's adorable." "Nathan just closed a deal worth more than your little farm could make in a decade." My blood surged, but before I could respond, my father Richard stepped forward, a bourbon in hand. "Actually," he said, his voice deep as a judge delivering a sentence, "I was going to ask about that. This farming business, when are you two going to do something?" "More substantial with your lives, Richard," my mother warned, but her eyes said she wanted the answer too. My chest tightened as if the entire family was pressing down on me, waiting for me to admit I'd failed. But Ethan, as always, was my anchor. "We're happy," he said, his voice simple but resolute. "Good work, honest work." "Honest work," Nathan echoed, sipping his martini, a smirk curling his lips. "Nice way to put it. Though I must say, seeing you two at family gatherings is like watching a nature documentary. Here are the simple farmers in their natural habitat." The laughter was sharper this time. I saw Chloe, standing at a distance, wince slightly, but she said nothing. She never did. Anger flared within me, uncontainable. "At least we sleep well at night," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. The laughter stopped. Nathan's smile froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" Lauren asked, her voice like shattered glass. I backpedaled, trying to diffuse the tension. "Nothing, just that physical work makes you tired." But I knew I'd crossed an invisible line. The air grew heavy, like the calm before a storm. Susan, with a forced smile, broke the silence. "Who wants to see the new pool house?" The crowd dispersed, following Lauren like obedient sheep. I started to follow, but Ethan grabbed my arm. "I'm going to check the truck," he said, his voice low. "Make sure we didn't leave a window open." I knew he just needed air. These gatherings were harder on him than he admitted, watching his wife be torn apart by her family while he stood powerless. "I'll come with you," I said, but he shook his head. "Stay. Enjoy your family. The word enjoy carried a weight we both understood. I stood alone by the pool, watching the sunlight ripple across the water, more expensive than our monthly grocery budget. Laughter from the pool house tour echoed, and I wondered what it would feel like to belong to that crowd, instead of always standing outside looking in. "They're awful today," Chloe said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of wine. I took one grateful. "Today?" "This is just a typical Tuesday for them." "It hasn't always been like this, has it?" Chloe asked, her voice hopeful. I turned to her. When was the last time anyone in this family asked about my life without turning it into a punchline? Chloe fell silent, her eyes dropping to the water. "Things are tense," she said finally, her voice low. "Nathan's work. Lauren's stressed. Stressed about what I asked, curious." Chloe glanced around as if afraid of being overheard. "Some of his big investments aren't doing well. Lauren's been talking about having to adjust their lifestyle." Before I could press further, Lauren's voice cut across the yard like a blade. "Emily, come settle a debate for us." I walked over, wine glass in hand, bracing for another attack. And I knew deep down that this war for recognition, for respect, was far from over. 6 months after that bitter barbecue, I began to notice cracks in the Blair family's perfect facade. My mother's weekly calls, usually brimming with boasts about Lauren's latest triumphs, stopped abruptly. When I reached out, her voice over the phone sounded like she was reading from a half-missing script, each sentence stilted, as if she were hiding a massive secret. "How's Lauren?" I asked during one particularly strained call, fishing for the truth. "Oh, you know Lauren, always busy, always doing something big," she replied. But the pause that followed was long enough to drive a truck through. "And Nathan, he's..." "Fine. Look, sweetheart, I have to go. Your father's calling." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone, frowning. In 30 years, my mother had never ended a call that abruptly unless someone was actually bleeding. The next clue came at Chloe's birthday dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown. No glitz, no grandeur, which should have been my first red flag. The Blairs didn't do understated. I sat across from Chloe in a cozy corner, Ethan beside me, the warm glow of candles on the table doing little to ease my unease. "Where is everyone?" I asked, scanning the nearly empty room. Chloe nibbled on a breadstick, avoiding my eyes. "Mom and Dad had a last-minute thing. Lauren and Nathan are tied up with work." "Work on a Saturday night?" I raised an eyebrow. Chloe shrugged, but her fingers crumbled the breadstick into tiny pieces, a telltale sign of her anxiety. "Things are complicated," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Complicated. How I leaned forward, sensing I was on the verge of a revelation. Chloe glanced around as if expecting spies in the quaint Italian restaurant, then lowered her voice. "Nathan's company is in trouble. Big trouble. Some investment went south. They had to sell the Hamptons house, the yacht, and Lauren's been calling around for short-term loans." A jolt ran through me, not quite satisfaction, but close. I felt ashamed of the feeling, but I couldn't deny it. "Have they asked you for money?" Ethan asked, his voice low and steady, though I knew he was absorbing every detail. "Not yet," Chloe replied. "Probably because I don't have anything to give." She looked up at me, her eyes searching. "They haven't called you, have they?" "No," I said, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "But we're just simple farmers. What do we know about real money?" Chloe winced as if struck. "You heard about that? I was there, remember, front row seat to Lauren's show?" Chloe sighed. "She's different lately. Stressed, snapping at everyone. Even the golden child has bad days, I guess." We ate in silence after that, but I felt Ethan's eyes on me. He knew me too well, saw the wheels turning in my head. Part of me, the part I didn't want to acknowledge, felt a flicker of vindication. Lauren, who always stood atop the world, was faltering. But another part, the one that still remembered the sting of her refusing to play with me at 7, just felt sad. A few days later, as Ethan and I harvested tomatoes under the late summer sun, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello," I said, wiping sweat from my brow. "Emily." A trembling voice said, older than I remembered. "It's Mom." My heart skipped. "Mom, are you okay?" "You sound..." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. Listen, I need to ask. Can you and Ethan come to the house this weekend? There's a family matter we need to discuss." The word family sent a chill down my spine. In Blair speak, family matter was never good news. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice tight. "It's better to talk in person, Saturday, 2 o'clock. I glanced at Ethan, who was pretending not to eavesdrop while stacking tomatoes in a crate. His shoulders were tense. "That should work," I said. "Should I bring anything?" "Just you and Ethan?" she said, then hung up. "Family meeting?" Ethan asked, not looking up. "Seems like it," I replied, watching him wipe his hands on his jeans. "About what?" She didn't say, but after what Chloe told us, I'm guessing they're going to ask for money. It wasn't a question, but a truth we both knew. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Ethan's steady breathing filled the room. Part of me, larger than I wanted to admit, felt a thrill. After years of being labeled the family failure, they needed me. The irony was delicious. But another part, the one still craving my family's approval, ached at the thought of their struggles. Saturday morning arrived with gray skies and a drizzle matching my mood. Ethan was unusually quiet as he drove to my parents' house, his hands gripping the wheel, his jaw tight. "Whatever they ask for," he said as we pulled into the familiar driveway. "Remember, you don't owe them anything." "I know," I replied, but he looked at me, his gaze piercing. "Do you?" "Because you have a soft heart, Emily. And they know how to exploit it." I looked at the house where I grew up, its perfect lawn and pristine shutters. It seemed smaller than in my memories, less imposing. "I'll be fine," I said. But as I stepped onto the porch, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, "Emergency family meeting. Please come. We need you." Lauren sent it. Lauren, who'd spent her life telling me I was worthless, was now begging for my help. I slipped the phone into my pocket, my heart pounding, and rang the doorbell. It was time to face reality and see what my family's true colors would reveal. The living room of my parents' house felt like a courtroom as we walked in. Everyone was already there, arranged in a careful arc, as if they'd been planning this ambush for weeks. My parents sat on the sofa looking older than I remembered, the lines on their faces deeper, as if time had carved their burdens into them. Lauren perched on the edge of an armchair, her designer outfit rumpled. Her usual confidence cracked like porcelain. Nathan stood by the window, his back to us, hands deep in his pockets, as if he couldn't bear to face anyone. Only Chloe looked genuinely uneasy, shooting me an apologetic glance from the ottoman. Sophie, Lauren's 8-year-old daughter, sat curled up beside her, looking out of place in her pristine white dress. "Emily, Ethan, my father," Richard said, gesturing to 2 chairs clearly set out for us. "Thank you for coming." We sat, and I instantly felt like I was on trial. The silence was oppressive, like the air before an explosion, so I said, breaking the tension, "What's this about?" My mother twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I remembered from childhood. "We want to talk about the family situation." "What situation?" I asked, my voice harder than I intended. Nathan finally turned, and I was stunned by how haggard he looked. His usual smugness was gone, replaced by a mix of desperation and anger. "Don't play dumb, Emily," he snapped. "You know exactly what's going on." "Nathan," Lauren warned, but her voice lacked its usual authority. "No, I'm done pretending," Nathan continued, his voice rising. "Chloe told you about our problems, didn't she? About the investments." I glanced at Chloe, who was studying her hands as if they held the secrets of the universe. "She said you're having a tough time," I replied carefully. "A tough time," Nathan gave a bitter, hollow laugh. "That's putting it mildly." Richard cut in, his voice calm but cold. "What Nathan means is that the family is facing financial challenges. Significant ones." "How significant?" I asked, the question hanging like smoke. My mother spoke at last, her voice trembling. "We could lose everything." The words hit the room like a punch, even though I'd suspected hearing it confirmed was different. "Everything?" Ethan asked softly. "The house savings, retirement funds. Everything," my father said, his voice flat. "Nathan invested on our behalf. Those investments didn't work out." I looked at Nathan, who was glaring at me as if this were my fault. "I'm sorry," I said cautiously, "but I don't understand why you're telling us. Because we need your help," Lauren said, leaning forward. For the first time in my life, I saw something in my sister's eyes that might have been desperation. "Help?" I echoed, stunned. "Your land," my father said bluntly. "The farm. We need you to sell it." The words were a slap. What? It's the only asset in the family not tied up in this mess. My mother explained, her voice pleading. If you sell the farm, we can pay off the debts and start over. I felt Ethan's hand grasp mine, warm and steady. You want us to sell our home, I said slowly, to fix your mistakes. Not mistakes, Nathan said, his voice rising. This is family doing what's right. What's right? My words were sharper than intended. What's right is asking your family to sacrifice everything they've built. What have you built? Lauren shot to her feet, her composure shattering. Emily, you're playing house on a patch of dirt. This is real life, real consequences. Real consequences for your choices. I shot back, standing too, my hands trembling. We're family, my mother sobbed, tears streaming down her face. Family helps each other. Where was that family loyalty when you spent years mocking everything we built? I shouted. Where was it when you treated Ethan like scum under your shoes? That's unfair, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. Unfair. Want to talk about fairness? Let's talk about every family gathering where you made us feel like pathetic losers. Every comment about our simple life. Every time you shamed us for existing. Emily Chloe started, but I was on a roll, unstoppable. And now when your golden son-in-law's plans fail, you suddenly remember us. Suddenly we're family. This isn't about the past, Lauren said, her voice desperate. This is now about survival. Your survival built on our sacrifice. Nathan exploded. It's just land, dirt, and weeds and nothing. You can buy another farm anywhere. The silence that followed was deafening. Even he realized he'd gone too far. Ethan stood, his movements slow, controlled. I think he said quietly, "We should go." Wait, my mother pleaded. Please think about it. We're not asking for a decision now. Actually, my father said, his voice hard. We are. The creditors won't wait longer. We need an answer by Monday. Monday. I stared at him. You're giving us 2 days to decide to destroy our lives for you. You're being dramatic, Lauren said, but her voice shook. It's just land. We're talking about human lives, my daughter's future. What about our future? I shot back. You don't have kids, she snapped. You don't understand what's at stake. The words were a punch to the gut. Ethan's jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists. We're leaving, I said, grabbing my purse. Emily. Please, my mother called as we headed for the door. Think about it. I turned back, looking at the people who shared my blood, but now felt like strangers. I'll think, I said. But you should think too. Think about what kind of people you are to ask your family to lose everything to save you from your own mistakes. As we reached the car, my father's voice followed. You'll come to your senses when you realize what you owe us, Emily. What we've done for you all these years. Ethan paused at the car door, his knuckles white. Owe you, I said loudly for all to hear. After 30 years of being treated like the family failure, what do we owe you? No one answered. At least no one dared to speak. The anger still simmered within me as we drove home, the familiar country road stretching before us. Fields of golden wheat glowing under the sunset, like a reminder of everything we'd built and everything my family wanted us to tear down. Ethan gripped the wheel, his knuckles pale, his silence heavy, like a storm about to break. I stared out the window, my mind reeling with the venomous words from the meeting, the demand to sell the farm, the accusation that we owed them, the way they reduced our lives to something disposable, as if our home, our dreams, our future were nothing but dirt and weeds. When we pulled up to our modest farmhouse, the porch light casting a glow on the weathered wood, I felt an odd peace, as if the land itself was embracing me, whispering that I belonged here. But Ethan didn't head inside. I need to show you something, he said, his voice low and resolute, his eyes sharp, unlike the gentle man I knew. Ethan. I'm not selling, I said firmly. I don't care what they say. I know you're not selling, he interrupted, heading toward the barn. This isn't about that. I followed, my heart-racing curiosity mingling with unease. The barn, with its scent of hay and old wood, was where we'd fix machinery together, laughing through long work days. But this time, Ethan went straight to a shadowy corner, to a metal filing cabinet I'd never seen him open. Sit, he said, pulling out a thick folder, his hands moving with the precision of someone who'd prepared for this moment for years. Ethan. You're scaring me, I said, sitting on an old wooden chair. The dim light from an overhead bulb, casting shadows on his face, highlighting its rugged lines. I'm not trying to scare you, he replied, opening the folder and spreading papers across the table. I want you to see who we really are. Legal documents, patents, financial reports spilled out numbers and words making my head spin. What is this? I asked, my voice trembling. He pointed to a document, the title bold patent issued to Ethan Stone, Advanced Precision Agricultural Irrigation System. This is the irrigation system I rigged for the North Field, he said, his voice calm but proud. Patented 3 years ago, currently used on farms across the Midwest. I scanned it, my heart pounding. Ethan, the man I thought only knew plowing and tractor repairs, had invented a system revolutionizing how farmers watered crops. He pulled out another document. This is the soil analysis software I'm developing. Tells us exactly when and where to plant. Also patented. Another document, his name at the top. I shook my head, dazed. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to be sure, he said, sitting across from me, his eyes earnest. I wanted to build something real before bragging. He slid a financial report across the table, the numbers at the bottom making me blink, certain I'd misread. This is how much we're worth, I whispered. The company's worth that, he replied. Stone Agricultural Technologies. I founded it 5 years ago, right after we married. Used our land as a testing ground for everything. I stared at the papers, then at my husband, as if seeing him for the first time. You've been running a tech company this whole time. A very discreet tech company. He said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Most clients don't even know where the patents come from. They just know they work. But why keep it secret? Why let my family think we're just farmers? A new anger rose, not at my family, but at Ethan for letting me endure their humiliation while he held this truth. He was silent for a moment, stacking the papers neatly. Because I wanted to see who they really were, he said finally, his voice low as stone. I wanted to see how they'd treat us when they thought we had nothing to offer. His words hit me like a blow to the chest. You knew, I said, my voice trembling. All this time you knew how they saw us, and you just let it happen. I let them show their true selves, he replied. Yes, while I suffered through every family gathering, thinking maybe they were right, that maybe I'd thrown my life away. Ethan reached for me, but I pulled back. You let me doubt myself, I said, my voice breaking. You let me think we were struggling while you sat on all of this. We were never struggling, he said firmly. The bills were always paid. We never went without. That's not the point, I shot to my feet, pacing to the window, staring out at the darkening fields. The point is, you let me feel small. You let them make me feel small. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the secrets he'd kept. There's more, he said softly. I turned back, my heart pounding. More what? Nathan's company, his failed investments. He pulled out another folder, opening it with the care of someone handling explosives. He bet against us. Against Stone Agricultural Technologies. I blinked, his words not immediately sinking in. What do you mean? He shorted our stock. Ethan said, his voice cold as steel. Put his client's money, including your parents' retirement funds, into a bet that our company would fail. I sank back into the chair, the final piece clicking into place. He lost their money because he bet against us, I whispered. Every dime. Ethan nodded. He was so sure anything tied to simple farmers had to be worthless, he staked everything on our failure. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from Chloe. They're coming to the farm tomorrow, the whole family. Dad says they won't take no for an answer. I handed the phone to Ethan. He read it, then looked up, a glint in his eyes that might have been anticipation. Good, he said. Let them come. Ethan, they'll demand we sell everything. They'll learn the truth. He replied, stacking the papers. The whole truth. What are you going to do? I asked, feeling like I was standing at a precipice. He stood, his smile sharp as a knife. I'm going to give them exactly what they've always asked for. A real lesson in who we are and what we're worth. I looked at Ethan, truly looked at him, and realized I was seeing a side of him I'd never known. The quiet farmer was still there, but beneath was something harder, more calculated. You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you? I asked. I've been preparing for it, he replied. There's a difference. Is there? I met his gaze, and for the first time since I'd known him, Ethan looked dangerous. I guess we'll find out tomorrow, he said. And a thrill ran through me, not fear, but awakening. Tomorrow my family would face the truth, and I, for the first time, would stand taller than them. Dawn the next day arrived with heavy gray clouds, as if the sky sensed the storm about to erupt. I stood in the kitchen staring down the driveway to the farm, my coffee long gone cold. My breath was steady, but my heart raced like a warrior gearing for battle. Today my family would arrive with their demands and their arrogance, thinking they could bully us into submission. But they didn't know what I'd learned last night, that Ethan, the man they'd mocked as a farmer, was the mastermind behind a $50 million agricultural tech empire. And Emily was no longer the trembling girl, cowering under their judgment. Ethan walked in still in his simple cotton shirt and worn jeans, as if today were just another work day. But his eyes were sharp, like a wolf scenting blood. Ready? He asked, his voice low but resolute. I nodded, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap. They won't know what hit them, I said, and Ethan's smile, cold and meaningful, sent a shiver through me. For the first time, I saw him not just as my gentle husband, but as a strategist, someone who'd been playing chess while my family thought they were playing checkers. At precisely 2 o'clock, 3 cars rolled down the dirt driveway, dust swirling around their polished exteriors. I stood at the window watching them step out, my parents Richard and Susan, their faces grim as if attending a funeral, Lauren clutching a leather portfolio, her perfect facade now a thin veneer, Nathan adjusting his tie as if heading into a boardroom instead of a farmhouse, and Chloe holding Sophie's hand, the 8-year-old looking lost in her pristine white dress. They stood in a line at the door like that thought the delegation come to collect a debt, and a surge of adrenaline coursed through me. This was it, the moment I'd reclaim what they'd stolen from me for 30 years, my pride, my confidence, my right to define myself. My father's knock was sharp, authoritative, as if he still held sway over my fate. I opened the door, standing tall, my gaze unwavering. "We need to talk," he said, no preamble. "Come in," I replied, stepping aside. They filed into our small living room, their eyes scanning the modest furniture, the hand-knit throw the family photos on the mantel. I saw them appraising, calculating as if pricing everything for an auction. But this time, I didn't shrink. I stood firm, as solid as the land beneath us. "Have a seat," Ethan said, gesturing to the sofa and armchairs, his voice calm but weighty. "We'll stand," Nathan replied, his tone clipped as if eager to get this over with. "This won't take long." "Actually," my father said, placing a portfolio on the coffee table like he was serving a court summons. "We brought paperwork to streamline things." He opened it, pulling out a stack of land sale documents already appraised, and with a buyer lined up. "Just sign," he said, as if it were a foregone conclusion. I stared at the papers, then at my family, anger flaring like wildfire. "You had our land appraised without asking." "We wanted to be efficient," my mother said. Her voice strained. "Time is critical." "Whose time?" Ethan asked, his voice soft but cutting. "Don't play games," Nathan snapped. "You know what's at stake. Your parents' house. Our future. Sophie's college fund, her future." "Daddy, what's happening?" Sophie asked, tugging at Nathan's sleeve. Her voice tiny but echoing in the silent room. "Nothing, sweetheart," Lauren said quickly, but her eyes were panicked. "The grown-ups are just talking about family." My mother added, her gaze locking onto me. "About how family takes care of each other." The words twisted in my heart, dredging up the familiar guilt that I should sacrifice for them, because I was the daughter, the sister, the one they'd always deemed not good enough. But then I looked at Ethan, and his eyes, calm, confident, almost defiant, pulled me back. "You're right," he said suddenly, stepping to the desk in the corner. "Family should take care of each other, which is why it's time we had an honest conversation about family." He pulled out a thick folder, the same one he'd shown me last night, and returned to the living room, placing it on the table beside my father's sale documents, like a declaration of war. "What's that?" Lauren asked, eyeing the folder suspiciously. "Information," Ethan replied, sitting down, his voice as casual as if discussing the weather. "About who we really are and what this land really represents." We don't have time for games, my father said, his voice impatient. There'll be a decision, Ethan said. But first, let me ask you something, Nathan. In your professional opinion, how much do you think this farm is worth? Nathan glanced around, his eyes dismissive. Maybe 200,000, 300 if you're lucky. Good land, but not prime real estate. Interesting assessment, Ethan replied, opening the folder and pulling out a document. What if I told you this land is the research and development headquarters for a company worth $50 million? The room went still. What Lauren whispered, her voice faint. Stone Agricultural Technologies. Ethan continued, his voice calm, but razor sharp. You may have heard of it, Nathan. You certainly know it well. Nathan's face drained of color, as if the blood had fled his body. No way. Really? Ethan pulled out another document. Patent number 10-847392, Advanced Precision Agricultural Irrigation System. Inventor Ethan Stone. Filed 3 years ago. Currently licensed to farms across 12 states. He placed the patent on the table right beside the sale documents. Patent number 11-203447. Predictive Soil Analysis Software. Also mine. Licensed to agribusinesses nationwide. Another document hit the table. Should I keep going, because I have about 30 more patents all developed on this worthless land? My mother stared at the papers as if they were written in a foreign language. I don't understand. It's simple, Ethan said. While you were busy looking down on us, we were building something that matters. But you're just a farmer, my father said, his voice weak. I'm a farmer with a PhD in agricultural engineering from MIT, Ethan replied. I'm also the CEO of a company that's revolutionizing how food is grown in this country. Lauren collapsed into the nearest chair. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real, Ethan said, pulling out a financial report. Want to see our quarterly profits? The numbers on the page made Nathan flinch. But wait, Ethan said, his voice hardening. There's more, Nathan. You said you're familiar with Stone Agricultural Technologies. You didn't just hear of it. You bet against it. The silence was suffocating. You shorted our stock, Ethan continued. Convinced your clients, including Emily's parents, to put their retirement funds into a bet that our company would fail. You were so certain anything tied to farmers had to be worthless. You staked everything on our destruction. Chloe whispered, "Oh my God." Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came. The irony, Ethan said, standing, is that you didn't just lose their money. You lost it to us. Every dollar you bet against Stone Agricultural Technologies flowed straight into our pockets when our stock doubled. The front door opened and a man in an expensive suit stepped in, carrying a briefcase like a weapon. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Traffic was brutal." "Everyone," Ethan said, his voice calm but commanding. "Meet Michael Carter, our attorney." Michael smiled at the room of stunned faces. "I believe you have some questions for my clients." He opened his briefcase with the precision of a surgeon, laying out legal documents that made my father's sale papers look like a joke. "Let's start with the basics," Michael said, adjusting his glasses. "This land is wholly owned by Stone Agricultural Technologies, a company owned by Ethan and Emily Stone. No debt, no liens, no legal entanglements." "No way," my father said. "We helped with the down payment, fully repaid with interest 18 months after purchase." Michael interrupted, sliding a document across the table. "Here's the cleared check." My father stared at it as if it might bite him. Furthermore, Michael continued, any attempt to force a sale through legal means would be ill-advised. This land is protected by agricultural preservation statutes, and the ongoing research here is backed by federal grants. "Federal grants," my mother whispered. "Oh yes," Ethan said. "The Department of Agriculture is very interested in our work. We're developing drought-resistant cropping systems that could transform farming in climate-impacted regions." Nathan finally found his voice. "This is all very impressive, but it doesn't change that we're family. We need help. Family," I repeated, standing the word bitter in my mouth. "Let's talk about family, shall we?" I stepped to the mantel, picking up a framed photo of my college graduation. "Remember this day, I graduated magna cum laude with a degree in environmental science." "Know what you said, Dad?" My father was silent, his face like stone. "You said, too bad it's not a real degree like business or law. You said I wasted 4 years learning about dirt and trees. I set the photo down, picking up another our wedding day. And this day when I married the love of my life. You spent the reception apologizing to everyone for my poor choices. You told Aunt Margaret you hoped I'd come to my senses before it was too late. Emily, my mother started, but I held up a hand. I'm not done. My voice was steady, but my hands shook. Every family gathering for 5 years, every holiday, birthday, anniversary, you made sure I knew my place. The loser, the failure, the one who settled for less. Lauren was crying, mascara streaking her cheeks. We didn't mean, you meant every word. I cut her off, turning to her. You called my life a joke. You said real life happens on Wall Street, not in my little bubble. You mocked everything we built, everything we cherish. But you didn't know, and you didn't care to know. You saw what you wanted to see, 2 nobodies you could look down on to feel better about yourselves. Michael cleared his throat. If I may, there's another matter to address. The family's financial losses. He pulled out a document. Stone Agricultural Technologies has tracked the short positions against our stock. We're required to report significant trades to the SEC. The trades were executed through Pinnacle Investment Group, where Mr. Nathan Olson is a senior partner. Total loss is approximately $2.3 million from the retirement funds of 17 clients. 17 families, Ethan said softly. 17 families who trusted you with their life savings, and you bet it all on us failing. It was a sure bet, Nathan said, desperate. Agtech startups fail 90% of the time. Odds are you should have done your homework before risking other people's money, Michael snapped. Did you visit the company, research the patents? Look into the leadership team? Silence. You didn't, did you? You saw agriculture and assumed it was worthless. Just like you assumed we were worthless. We could sue, my father said suddenly, for the losses, for damages. Michael smiled, not warmly. Go ahead. I'd love to explain to a jury how your son-in-law lost your retirement by betting against your daughter's company. That visual alone would be compelling. What do you want? Lauren asked, her voice breaking. What do you want from us? I looked around the room at the people who shared my blood, but had never truly been my family. My parents who made me feel small for 30 years. Lauren who turned cruelty into an art form. Nathan who gambled their future on arrogance. And Sophie, the innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes. I want you to leave, I said simply. I want you to walk out that door and never come back. Emily. Please don't, my mother begged, tears streaming. We're sorry, we're so sorry. We were wrong, but we're family. No, I said. And the word felt like a door to freedom. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated us. Family doesn't spend years tearing each other down. Family doesn't crawl back only when they need something. What about us? Lauren asked. What about Sophie, her future? I looked at Sophie, my heart aching for her. Sophie's future isn't my responsibility, it's yours, and you gambled it away. You'd really let us lose everything? My father asked. After everything we've done for you, I laughed, the sound harsh even to my ears. What have you done for me, Dad? Besides make me feel like I was never good enough for 30 years, no one answered. This meeting's over, Ethan said, standing. Michael, can you show our guests out? Wait! Lauren screamed, her voice shrill with desperation. You'll regret this, Emily. You'll regret turning your back on family. When you're old and alone, you'll remember this day and wish you'd chosen differently. I looked into her eyes, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of my sister. You're right, I replied. I'll remember this day. I'll remember it as the day I stopped letting you define my worth. They left like mourners leaving a funeral, taking their demands and their arrogance with them. Through the window, I watched their cars disappear, leaving dust and silence. For the first time in 30 years, I was free. As my family's cars vanished into the dust on the dirt road, a strange stillness settled over the farm. Not the empty silence of defeat, but a vibrant quiet, as if the air had been holding its breath for 3 decades and was now free to exhale. I stood on the porch, gazing at the field stretching before me, the golden wheat glowing under the sunset, like a promise of what we'd built and what we'd continue to build. Michael Carter, our attorney, snapped his briefcase shut with the same precision he'd opened it, a faint smile on his lips. Well, he said. securing the latch that went about as expected. "You've done this before," I asked, still reeling from the confrontation. "Not quite like this," Michael replied, adjusting his tie. "But I've seen enough family dramas to know how they end. People show their true colors when they're desperate. Your family showed you who they are, and now you move forward without them." He left, leaving Ethan and me on the porch, the golden orange light of dusk, wrapping us like a warm blanket. I sank into the old rocking chair, feeling the rough wood under my hands, and turned to Ethan. He was staring out at the fields, his fingers tracing the railing as if sketching our future. "Do you think I was too harsh?" I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted. The final words I'd said to my family, telling them to leave, cutting ties, still echoed in my mind. Sharp, but also painful. Ethan was silent for a moment, his gaze distant. "Do you remember what Lauren said at our wedding about us playing in the mud?" "How could I forget?" I replied, the memory still as vivid as a blade. "That day, I knew this moment would come," he said, turning to me. "Maybe not exactly like this, but something like it. They never saw us, Emily. They saw what they wanted to see, people they could feel superior to." "But they're still my family," I said, my voice trembling though I hated the weakness. "Are they, Ethan?" Asked the question lingering like morning fog. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Chloe's name lit up the screen. "You should take it," Ethan said, his eyes gentle. "She's different from them." I took a deep breath and answered, "Hello, Emily." Chloe's voice was choked with tears. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Chloe." I started, but she cut me off. "No, let me say this. I knew how they treated you, and I never stood up for you. I told myself I was staying neutral. But there's no neutral when someone you love is being hurt." I closed my eyes, unexpected tears welling. "You were caught in the middle," I said, trying to excuse her. "I was a coward, Chloe," replied, her voice breaking. "And now, God, Emily, what they're saying about you. Dad's telling everyone you abandoned the family. Mom's acting like you personally ruined their lives. And Lauren, she's bitter. So bitter. She says you and Ethan set this all up." "We didn't set anything up," I said, my voice hardening. "We just stopped pretending we're smaller than we are." "I know," Chloe said. "I know you, even if I didn't defend you like I should have." Her voice trembled. "Can you forgive me?" I looked out at the fields where Ethan and I had poured sweat and dreams into building this life. "You're calling me now," I said. "That means something. I want to see you," she said. "Not to ask for anything. Just, I miss you, the real you. Not the version they tried to make you be. Come for dinner Sunday," I replied. "Bring whoever you want, but leave the drama at home." "Just me," she promised. "I swear." As I hung up, Ethan took my hand, his warmth a reminder that I wasn't alone. "One came back," he said. "Think any of the others will change." I thought of my mother, her tears, of Lauren, her shattered arrogance, of my father who never apologized. A week ago, the thought of losing my family would have sent me into a panic. But now, sitting here with Ethan on land we owned outright, surrounded by the success we'd built, I felt like I was shedding an old skin. "No," I said, and for the first time, I truly believed it. "It doesn't matter." The next morning, I was in the garden, hands caked with dirt, as I pulled weeds when a strange car pulled into the driveway. My heart leapt, thinking my parents might have returned for another round. But as I looked up, a woman about 40, in a simple blouse and jeans, stepped out of a sedan, holding a folder. "Mrs. Stone," she called, her voice friendly, but professional. "I'm Jessica Thompson from the Department of Agriculture. I'd like to talk to you and your husband about your drought-resistant research." Ethan emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag, a slight smile on his lips. "Jessica, perfect timing. The preliminary results you sent were impressive," she said, shaking his hand. "We want to fast-track approval for expanded trials." "Grants?" I asked, stunned. $2.7 million over 3 years, Jessica said, smiling. "Your husband's work could change how we approach farming in drought-affected regions. We're talking about feeding millions." I looked at Ethan, who just shrugged as if this were no big deal. "You didn't mention this," I said, a hint of reproach in my voice. "I wanted to be sure before getting your hopes up," he replied. "But yeah, we're about to get busy." As Jessica and Ethan discussed research protocols and timelines, I stood there thinking about my family's visit yesterday. They'd come here demanding we sacrifice everything to save them from their own mistakes, oblivious to the fact that they were asking us to destroy something that could feed the world. The irony was perfect, bitter, and beautiful. That evening, Ethan and I walked through the fields as we'd done hundreds of times, but everything felt different. The sky blazed with orange and pink, as if celebrating our victory. "Any regrets?" Ethan asked, his voice gentle but serious. I thought of my mother's tears, Lauren's desperation, and Sophie the child, caught in the mess of adult mistakes. I thought of the years of humiliation, the feeling of never being good enough, the way they made me doubt every choice I'd made. "No," I said, and I meant it. "No regrets." "Even about family?" he asked. "They made their choice long before today," I replied. "They chose to see us as less. They chose to bet against us literally and figuratively." I stopped, turning to him, a sense of freedom coursing through me like a river. "I choose us. I choose this life, this work, the future we're building." Ethan smiled, the gentle smile that made me fall in love with him the first time we met. "Good," he said, "because I have big plans for us. Bigger than a $50 million company, much bigger." He gestured to the fields around us. "We're going to change the world, Emily. One seed at a time." As we walked back to the house, I realized something had shifted in me. The part of me that had always sought my family's approval, that carried their disappointment like a weight, it was gone. In its place was something stronger, purer. I was exactly where I belonged, with the right person, doing the work I was meant to do. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. This story is a testament to a truth. When power and arrogance go too far, a resolute stand can rewrite the rules. My family used scorn and judgment to keep me in the shadows. But by standing up and reclaiming my worth, I broke their chains. The lesson for you is this: never let anyone silence your voice. Fight fiercely, because that's the American spirit, resilient, authentic, and never bowing to injustice.